Incredible waitress discovers hidden voice of Mafia boss's mute daughter in a touching sign language encounter. The little diner in Pine Valley buzzed like clockwork, but Jenny's heart felt heavier than ever. Each steaming cup of coffee she served, each polite smile she affixed, was a shield against the crushing reality of her life at 28. An ailing father, age spots and trembling hands, sat at home while she hustled among the booths, her feet aching on the worn linoleum. She had grown accustomed to the scratchy voices of regulars discussing last week's football game, but today the hum of conversation faded into the background the moment Isabella stepped through the door. Isabella was the daughter of the local mafia boss, silently captivating, with long, dark hair framing an expressive face that betrayed a sense of profound loneliness. Yet here she was, sifting through the diner's bustle like a misplaced pearl amongst pebbles. Initially, Jenny's instinct was to categorize her as just another entitled customer looking for a quick bite. Her diamond-studded rings sparkled like they didn't belong in a diner adorned with patterned vinyl. But those deep, sorrowful eyes spoke a language Jenny understood, one of longing, of disconnection. Every day, as she refilled sugary mugs and comforted the disgruntled, Jenny felt a growing ache in her chest. What good were her efforts in a town where hope felt all but drained? The resentment danced at the edges of her mind, the spiral of her father's declining health and the burden of his debts to the mafia loomed heavily. It left her feeling suffocated, as if she were constantly swimming against an insurmountable tide. Then came the decision. Should she brave a connection with the mysterious Isabella? As the days passed, an unexpected resolve settled within her. She began learning American Sign Language, fingers tracing letters into the air, the symbols of a world beyond spoken words. Each gesture felt like a lift from the weight of her reality, a momentary escape from her worries. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With Isabella seated at her usual corner booth, Jenny would sign simple phrases, "How are you? Beautiful day," and watch as Isabella's face lit up, a flicker of recognition sparkling something deep within her. Music flowed from the woman's fingertips when she would sit at the diner's rusted piano, her melodies haunting and heart-wrenching, revealing a hidden talent that transcended their isolated existence. But along with the budding friendship, shadows lurked at the edges of Jenny's world. News about her father's debts crackled in hushed conversations behind her, and the stakes grew unbearable. Every smile she offered to Isabella felt like deceit, a smokescreen shielding her from the simmering storm brewing just beyond their newfound bond. The day her father's creditors came to her, demanding answers, accusations spiraled through her mind. Desperation clawed at her throat as she sat on the edge of a trembling decision. The thought of jeopardizing everything for her father's mistakes, coupled with the intoxicating hope of helping Isabella reclaim her voice, entangled Jenny in a web of anguish. Could she navigate these treacherous waters before tipping into irrevocable chaos? As Jenny faced the harsh reality of her choices, the diner pulsed with an energy that felt alive, on the brink of a performance by Isabella that could either divide or unify. Amidst the tightening squeeze of her worries, Jenny's heart raced, entangled in the precarious balance of familial loyalty and newfound friendship. What would happen when the walls of their lives collided? The air felt charged as the diner settled into a tense anticipation, each clinking plate echoing the uncertainty in Jenny's heart. As Isabella began to play, a honking melody filled the small space, weaving emotions into the fabric of the diner's warm ambiance. The notes formed a story she was desperate to understand, yet fear tugged at her mind like a wild wind. Each chord resonated within Jenny, coaxing forth thoughts of her father's failing health and the imminent threat posed by the creditors. The wall between her father's unforgiving reality and her budding connection with Isabella felt insurmountable. Every time she signed to Isabella, she felt happiness bloom, but accompanying that joy was the oppressive shadow of her responsibilities, darkening the vitality of their connection. In the midst of it all, she recognized a truth. She was growing. Learning to sign had unlocked a door to the world outside the diner, one painted with colors of possibility and understanding. Yet every shift of her fingers was a reminder of what was at stake. She had been scared of acknowledging affection, but now she could feel her own heart thirsting for a meaningful connection with Isabella, one that might offer comfort amid chaos. Determined to embrace this fragile bond further, Jenny decided to invite Isabella into the depths of her turmoil. On a flickering Tuesday evening, she approached their usual table, a fragile alliance formed in coffee cups and shared glances. Jenny took a breath, the taste of courage mixing with the bitter scent of coffee. "Isabella," she signed, fingers trembling, "I need your help."
She conveyed her father's decline and the heavy shadow of debts they could not ignore. Isabella's face shifted from intrigue to empathy as she traced Jenny's fingers in response, silently assuring her that they now shared a secret. The gravity of their bond shifted in that moment. They were no longer just Cassandra and the ethereal countess, but allies forged in shared trials. Isabella's eyes sparkled, revealing an untapped strength beneath the surface. Jenny could feel the brewing magic of their unspoken connection, a reflection of dreams slightly obscured by desperation. In the days that followed, Isabella's participation blossomed. She carved out time amidst her silk-embroidered life, joining Jenny in her shifts, helping with the lunch rush, creating harmony amid chaos. Girlhood laughter occasionally punctuated the hum of diner chatter, breaking the heaviness that enveloped Jenny's every thought. But the serenity was fragile. Each time Jenny faced the angry glances from the local enforcers, demanding payment, she felt the walls constricting around her. Even the diner that had been a sanctuary became a trap, filled with whispers of her father's legacy haunting her steps. The emotional whiplash between stolen moments of joy with Isabella and the looming dread of confrontation festered within. Then she received a call that shattered her fragile peace. Her father had collapsed, the weight of his debts finally overwhelming him. Panic clawed at Jenny's throat, tightening like a noose as swift visions of her life without him rushed through her mind. In that moment, something ignited within her, a surge of defiance rose to the occasion. Jenny realized she had been navigating through fear for far too long. The thought of sacrificing her father's well-being while protecting her newfound connection was an uncomfortable crossroads demanding her resolve. A decision needed to be made. Would she face the threats to safeguard both her father and Isabella's burgeoning confidence? The moment was ripe with tension, a volatile mixture brewing within her, and the pull between loyalty and emerging empowerment was palpable. Jenny took a deep breath, knowing that the decision she would make next could alter the entire trajectory of her life, and she was ready to confront whatever lay ahead. Soon, she would have to take a stand, but first she needed a plan. A significant choice loomed, and she could feel the weight of it pressing down like an unyielding storm. Would she find comfort in the voice of a friend when the tempest reached its peak? Jenny stood over the sink, scrubbing dishes with mechanical precision, while her mind spiraled through the chaos of the moment. The haunting call from the hospital echoed in her ears, and as the suds slipped through her fingers, so did the sense of control she fought so fiercely to maintain. With each plate she washed, memories of her father's laughter intermingled with the weight of his current state.
He had been her anchor, providing strength that was quickly being eroded by financial despair and health crises. Could she really confront the enforcers? Could she survive the consequence of that choice? The thought gnawed at her. Isabella appeared like a soothing breeze breaking through the tension, her presence a reminder of the vitality Jenny so desperately sought. As if sensing the storm brewing within, Isabella stepped closer. "Jenny," she signed, her hands fluid and expressive. "What can I do?" Those simple words sent a spark igniting within Jenny. The idea of sharing her burdens felt foreign yet liberating. She had been so protective of the fragile connection they shared, afraid to taint it with her struggles. Yet here stood Isabella, willing to dive into the murky waters alongside her. "I need to be bold," Jenny thought, the gears turning within her mind. "No more running. I have to fight." They arranged a time to meet after the diner closed, and for the first time in a long while, fear was replaced by a bubbling anticipation of change. As they pulled the dwindling diner sign down, Jenny felt the night air surrounding them like a cloak, heavy yet inviting. "I have a plan," Jenny began, her voice steady and fingers unwavering as she laid out the steps she had crafted through sleepless nights. "We can confront them together, set clear boundaries for what's acceptable." Isabella listened, her expressive nature illuminating every syllable grasped. The intensity of their discussion filled the small empty diner, echoing through the corners where laughter had once reigned. With each strategic point Ginny presented, Isabella countered with thoughtful insights, enhancing the plan, sharpening its edges. Despite the chaos buzzing in her mind, clarity began to form, a concoction of courage, planning, and a desire for a future unchained from fear. Yet as the plan solidified, an unsettling doubt emerged. Would confronting the enforcers paint a target not just on her back, but on Isabella's as well? A deep breath punctuated the silence, her heart racing at the thought of involving someone she cherished in such darkness. Suddenly, the possibility of losing Isabella became a shadow flitting through her mind, dampening the fire of newfound defiance. "Isabella," she began, hesitating. "What if this goes wrong? I can't let them hurt you." The concern was etched in her expression, fingers trembling slightly. "Ginny," Isabella signed back, her movements deliberate and calm. "We are stronger together. You must trust me." That trust ignited something within Ginny. She could feel, distinctly, that she was not alone. This connection was a powerful antidote to the fear that once choked her resolve. But as they stood together in the fading light, the weight of her father's condition and their looming confrontation merged, creating an overwhelming tide.
The decision to act against the enforcers would risk everything, yet it was a risk that hinted at a reclaiming of her power. "I must find my voice," Jenny thought, a beam of determination slicing through the fog of uncertainty. "To confront these shadows, I must become the light." The hour grew late, but instead of exhausting her, a new kindled energy coursed through her. Inspired, she drew closer to Isabella, ready to take on the enforcers' demands head-on. Empowerment surged, yet the knowledge of potential repercussions loomed ever larger. As darkness settled around them, Jenny couldn't shake the feeling that a truth was waiting just out of reach, one that could alter everything, not just for her, but for the fragile world she had created around Isabella. She turned to Isabella, their eyes locking in silent agreement. "Tomorrow," she signed, "we'll confront them together." With those words, an unspoken pact solidified between them. Every decision made from this point would not just shape their immediate futures, but the core of who they were becoming. What awaited them when dawn broke? Would this confrontation lead to liberation, or deepen their entanglement in the chaos? Jenny could feel the tension wrapping around her as it readied for release. But the moment of truth was nearing, and she was both terrified and exhilarated, an intricate blend that pushed her forward into the unknown. The dawn crept in slowly, wrapping the world in soft, muted shades. Jenny stood near the diner window, her nerves abuzzed as sunlight filtered through the grime. Today was pivotal. She felt the heaviness of the weight pressing down on her chest, charging her with both urgency and fear. The last remnants of uncertainty clung like vestiges of fog, yet within her, the ember of determination flickered brightly. Isabella was late, and Jenny's thoughts bounced between the plan they had crafted and the potential fallout. Each scenario projected differing outcomes, liberation or catastrophic entanglement. Would they be able to reclaim their sense of agency, or would this confrontation spiral out of control, drawing Isabella deeper into danger? She inhaled slowly, using the moment to quell the rising tide of anxiety with a grounding breath. Suddenly, the bell above the door chimed. Isabella, slightly winded, rushed in, her vibrant energy bursting through the mundane clinks of diner utensils. "Sorry for keeping you waiting," she signed, urgency evident in her quick motions. "We need to finalize our approach," Jenny replied, her fingers maneuvering smoothly to communicate the gravity of their task. A spark of excitement ignited between them as they stepped into the early morning light, shadows trailing behind them. Their first destination was the grimy alley where they had first learned of the enforcers. The alley was a harbinger of what lay ahead, vulnerability mingling with resolve. "Do we just walk up and demand answers?" Isabella signed, eyebrows raised in skepticism. Jenny considered this, recalling her father's stories of confrontation. There was power in the assertiveness he embodied, a power she was ready to channel. No shouting, no aggression, just clarity. We need to present ourselves as equals. The tension undercut the air around them as they took steps toward the looming figure that had become synonymous with fear among those burdened by debts. As they reached the alley's mouth, Jenny spotted Marco, a notorious enforcer, leaning casually against the wall, a tight grin plastered across his face. "Here we go," Jenny thought, feeling adrenaline flood her system. Each heartbeat was a reminder of purpose, a reminder of why she was standing there. Even amidst fear, there was resolve. "Jenny," Isabella signed, urging her to focus. "Are you ready?" Ginny could only nod, a fierce fire lighting her gaze. The two approached, their steps deliberate, their hearts pounding in unison. Marco's presence felt oppressive, his very being cloaked in the scent of intimidation. "Look what we have here," he drawled, an amused glimmer in his eyes. "Two brave souls thinking they can challenge the order of things?" The words struck a chord within Ginny. They were not just here to confront, they were reclaiming their narrative. With a fierce steadiness, she stepped forward, laying out their plan, words flowing with precision as Isabella mirrored her clarity through gestures. "We want to set boundaries," Ginny pronounced firmly, passing through the initial wave of intimidation. "No more threats." Marco's enjoyment faded, his smirk swiftly replaced by a tempered expression. "You think you can just walk in here and dictate terms? You're playing with fire." Each word from Marco drove the truth deeper into Ginny's consciousness. This was a delicate dance, and each move carried weight. With every attempt to assert herself, she felt the shackles of fear begin to fracture, discomfort turning into conviction. "I won't allow my father's life to be manipulated for profit," Ginny responded, her voice rising with passion. "This is about dignity, your dignity too." As her words echoed through the alley, a silence enveloped them, few seconds stretching into an eternity. The air crackled with tension, but Ginny sensed a notable shift. Marco's eyes narrowed, perhaps seeing a glimmer of resolve that resonated with something deeper within him. But the moment teetered precariously on a knife's edge. "Bold, perhaps too bold," he eventually replied, a newfound respect weaving into his tone, but the threat still loomed large. Isabella's presence imbued strength, the two of them emerging as catalysts in that disparate moment. Together, they had manipulated the narrative, bending it to reflect resilience rather than submission, yet the crux of their confrontation lay still in question. Would Marco truly acquiesce? With stakes higher than ever, Ginny felt a tidal wave of realities approaching. What would their next move be?
Would they manage to secure their dignity, or had they provoked a much greater storm? As she stood her ground, a familiar shadow danced on the periphery of her conscious thoughts, the notion that they might still be deepening their entanglement, not freeing themselves. The lingering uncertainty shifted from doubt to a newfound determination. She would not shy away now. "Let's negotiate," Ginny urged with renewed conviction, her heart in her throat, ready to face whatever consequences loomed just beyond the horizon. What hidden depths of power would they uncover in these negotiations? Would this confrontation lead them closer to liberation or deeper into the spiral of chaos? Marco assessed Ginny and Isabella, his posture shifting slightly, as though considering the unexpected turn in their approach. The air remained taut, a fraying thread binding them together in an uncharted territory filled with potential and peril. Ginny could almost feel the weight of their confrontation distilling down to a single critical moment, the decision that would forge their path forward. "What happens next?" Marco's voice dripped with skepticism, yet there was an undercurrent of intrigue that danced behind his words. Ginny prepared herself to respond, drawing on the reservoir of strength she had ignited within. As she opened her mouth to answer, she hesitated. Would she reveal their vulnerabilities, their fears? Behind the bravado, she wrestled with the surge of doubt that threatened to cloud her resolve. Still, she took a deep breath, grounding herself in the reality of the situation. "We want an agreement," she declared, her fingers moving deftly while her heart barely kept up with the rhythm. "No intimidation, no threats. If we're going to end this cycle, we have to start fresh. We need a chance for both our families to walk away intact." Marco's slick confidence showed flickers of hesitance. "You think it's that simple? It's not a business deal. People get hurt in this line of work when things go south." He stepped forward, and the space between them felt charged with an electric tension, one that bore the weight of their individual stakes. "I know," Ginny replied, her voice steady despite the quaking within. "But people are also willing to change. You mentioned playing with fire. Maybe it's time to put it out." Her words danced between caution and challenge, forming a bridge that spanned the gap between fear and possibility. Isabella, sensing the tide shifting, stepped in closer, her hand raised and fingers forming a sign that accentuated Jenny's message. The fluidity of their synergy seemed to draw Marco's focus, the visual language breaking down walls that words alone struggled to traverse. In that moment, Ginny caught a glimpse of a possible ally where she had only anticipated resistance. "Look," Marco said, an unsettling mixture of curiosity and skepticism on his face. "I could respect the guts it takes to come here like this.
But this is a dangerous game, and you could both find yourselves in deep trouble." "Maybe," Ginny said, allowing herself a moment to establish eye contact with him, determined to anchor her intentions. But isn't it also true that living in fear isn't living at all? What do we even have to lose if we keep playing by their rules? In her heart, she knew she was crossing a threshold. The gamble she was taking wasn't just about this negotiation. It was about the courage to rewrite her own narrative. Each word she exchanged with Marco was a step toward dismantling the chains that had restrained her for too long. Marco's eyes flickered with thought, and for the first time since the encounter began, there was a softness within his hardened facade, a glimpse of the turmoil beneath. "You're not like the others," he admitted quietly, almost begrudgingly. Isabella's expression turned hopeful but cautious as they exchanged glances, both acutely aware that the edge of this moment could tilt either way. Jenny's mind raced, questioning how far this fragile thread could stretch before snapping back to chaos. Perhaps they were opening a door that should have remained shut. Perhaps this was merely the calm before a storm. Yet the decision loomed large in front of her, and Jenny braced herself for either outcome. "We're willing to make a deal," she reiterated, feeling that shift into an empowered resolve. "Let's sit down, talk specifics, and find a way out for us all, the boundaries we need." With the stakes this high, Jenny knew what she was willing to stake on the table: her own sense of agency, her father's future, and the hope that this encounter could lead to greater things. The question was whether Marco would take the bait. "Meet me tomorrow, same place, and we'll talk," he finally said, his voice low. "But know this, Jenny, I don't back down easily, and neither do those who work for me." As he stepped away, the ephemeral hope filled her like a charged current, yet it was tinged with an undeniable unease. Could trust be built from everything they'd faced? Did she dare believe they had turned a corner? "That was bold," Isabella signed, exhaling sharply. "Too bold?" Jenny questioned, a mix of trepidation and exhilaration coursing through her. "No, I think bold is what we need right now," Isabella replied, her confident spirit shining through. Their journey had only just begun, yet a new layer of possibility unfurled before them, urging them to tread carefully as they embraced the delicate dance of negotiation. With their trust tested, they were running headlong into the unknown, holding on to hope. But as the sun dipped down, a disquieting realization settled in Jenny's mind. What else would they have to face the next day? The danger was far from over, and tomorrow threatened not just their dreams of liberation, but the very foundations of their newfound courage.
Would they unravel the complexity of the negotiations, or would they find themselves ensnared in deeper chaos than ever before? The morning sun broke through the window, casting slanted rays across the room. Jenny awoke with the weight of the impending confrontation pressing heavily on her chest. She rolled over, heart racing, as waves of uncertainty washed over her. Today was not just another day. It felt like standing at the edge of a precipice, daring to leap into a void whose depths were unknown. She pulled herself from bed, focusing on the mundane ritual of getting dressed, each action grounding her amid the simmering chaos. The mirror reflected not just her physical form, but the undercurrents of resolve that had become her armor. But the question loomed larger than herself. Could today shape a future without vengeance? With her hair slicked back and a crisp blouse tugged into her pants, she felt the faint stirrings of confidence. Yet it was a fragile force, easily overshadowed by the specter of fear. Her thoughts darted back to Marco, his skepticism, the way he'd studied her as if searching for hidden cracks in her composed facade. She knew one misstep could disrupt everything they hoped to accomplish. "I can't falter," she whispered to her reflection. "Not now." The words echoed in her mind, summoning the inner voice that had oxidized with doubt, but began to reignite with determination. Breakfast was a hurried affair, the air filled with the aroma of coffee mingling with tension. Isabella, sitting across the table, seemed to sense her unease. "You've got this, Jenny," she said, her fingers gently tracing the table like a conductor orchestrating silence. "Remember what we discussed. Stay focused on her goals. We have strength through unity." The reassurance flickered warmth through Jenny, yet a gnawing anxiety remained. As they finished, she took a deep breath, grounding herself in their shared mission. The drive to the meeting spot felt interminable, each passing moment amplifying the gravity of their intentions. Jenny focused on the scenery blurring by outside the window, allowing her mind to drift toward the potential outcomes. What if this meeting went south? Would they inadvertently provoke the tensions they desperately sought to diffuse? Pulling up to the nondescript cafe, she exchanged a look with Isabella, a shared understanding rippling between them as if to say, "This is it."
They stepped into the cafe, the low hum of conversation swaddling them in an odd familiarity, yet the stakes felt palpably higher. Jenny scanned the room, spied Marco already seated at a corner table, and steeled herself to approach. He looked up from his phone, the expression on his face unreadable, and she felt a jolt of emotion. Was this trust or trepidation? "Glad you could make it," Marco said, a casualness that belied the tension simmering just below the surface. "Let's cut to the chase," Jenny replied, surprising herself with the ease of her tone.
We want to outline terms that ensure both our families can step back from the brink. The conversation flowed forward, but the rhythm shifted abruptly when Marco leaned in. Rules aren't easily broken in our world, Jenny. What's to stop me from using the same tactics I've always employed? The challenge hung there, suspended in the air thick with uncertainty. Jenny's mind raced, weighing her response. Did she have enough leverage? Did her determination shine through the cracks in their trust? "Nothing," she replied, voice steady through the storm. "But wouldn't it be worthwhile to change the narrative? We want a future, not a battlefield. People can still thrive without fear." As Marco deliberated, a flicker of doubt danced across his eyes. It sparked something within her. Perhaps they could build a bridge over the chaos. Each word they exchanged felt like a step toward redefining their journeys. The histories written in pain could now be rewritten with courage and resolve. Yet, as they navigated this unfolding conversation, a looming shadow descended. The door swung open, and a figure entered, promptly shifting the atmosphere. The tension crackled anew, as both Jenny and Marco turned to face the unexpected arrival. "Who invited him?" Marco asked lowly, his demeanor switching, sharpened by the intrusion. Jenny's heart skidded, fear clenched at her throat. In a snapshot, the stakes had elevated yet again, tearing the fragile thread of hope. This wasn't just about her narrative anymore. It was about survival amidst the chaos unraveling before her. As their eyes locked onto the stranger, Jenny realized the precarious hold she had on her future. The time had come to confront the abyss once and for all. But would she have the strength to face the revelations about to unfold? The abrupt entrance of the stranger jolted the dynamics of the cafe. Jenny's pulse quickened, and she felt the full weight of the moment pressing upon her. The man's presence felt like an invasion, a challenge to the fragile peace they had been attempting to construct. She cast a quick glance at Marco. His expression was now one of cautious vigilance, the earlier casual tone vanishing like steam from a freshly brewed cup. "Keep your cool," she reminded herself, taking a steadying breath. The stakes had changed. This was no longer just a conversation about terms. It was an intricate dance through a minefield. The stranger wore a tailored suit that suggested authority, each movement deliberate and calculated. Jenny couldn't help but analyze him, searching for clues as to how he fit into the puzzle they were assembling. The way he surveyed the cafe was revealing. He was no casual observer, but someone accustomed to command, to navigating tensions. "What do we do?" Isabella whispered, her voice barely audible above the murmur of the room. Jenny appreciated her proximity, her reaffirmation of their partnership amidst the swirling uncertainty.
"Just trust our instincts," Jenny replied softly, attempting to project an air of calm she wished she felt. This meeting had transformed from a negotiation to an urgent survival strategy. "Marco, let's focus on the matter at hand," she pressed, her tone firm, though her heart raced. "What will it take to ensure a mutual agreement? Trust isn't easily won back, but it can be fostered." Marco's eyes darted to the stranger, then back to her, as if weighing the risks against the potential rewards. "We're not in a position of power here, Jenny, not with him." He nodded subtly in the intruder's direction, his defenses clearly rising. The man's gaze had locked onto Jenny, and in that moment she felt a shiver of recognition ripple through her. Were they connected by more than just the murky waters of their families? Could they be grappling with encounters that transcended their immediate strife? "Listen," she ventured, feeling a spark surge through her. "Why don't we acknowledge the tension rather than hide from it? Open up the door for dialogue." The words flowed more easily than she anticipated, suggesting a newfound clarity. Facing confrontation wasn't just about strategy, but engaging authentically. Marco stared at her, surprised by the boldness she was finding. The stranger, however, had taken a step closer, a wry smile dancing at the edges of his lips. He intrigued and threatened her all at once. "You have guts, I'll give you that. But guts alone won't change the game," he remarked, his voice smooth, a mixture of challenge and allure. "Maybe not, but what if we redefine the game?" Jenny countered, her conviction solidified. "What if we choose not to be defined by our parents' choices? Isn't there something to be learned from vulnerability?" The room felt electric around her words. The gravity of her statement sunk in,
reshaping the intent of their discourse. As the conversation began to shift, the sense of agency returned to her. The fear that had gripped her heart at the start of the meeting began to dissolve. In that moment, the possibility of forging a path away from conflict, rather than into its jaws, revealed itself as a tangible objective. But just then, the stranger spoke again, his tone low and commanding. "You think you can change the script? You're playing a dangerous game, Jenny." A chill ran down her spine, the weight of his warning hanging heavily in the air. The words had shifted something within her. It wasn't just her future at stake. It was the very fabric of what they were trying to build in a world drenched in chaos. Yet the fire ignited within her rebelled against that intimidation. This was her chance to reshape the narrative, to either sink or rise above. Resolutely, she straightened her posture and looked him dead in the eye. "Then let's make it a game worth winning."
The immediate silence was punctuated only by the sound of shifting chairs, and as the tension spiraled, the question loomed heavy. Would she have the courage to follow through with her convictions and the unpredictable situation unraveling around her? In that charged silence, a myriad of decisions spun in her mind, each option more precarious than the last, leading deeper into the heart of a conflict she was beginning to grasp. It was no longer just a question of survival. It was a moment that could forge her destiny. "Ready to play then?" Marco's voice broke through the silence, tightening the web of tension. But as they prepared to navigate through this impending storm, Jenny couldn't shake the feeling that there was more lurking beneath the surface, unseen forces that could shatter their hopes yet again. Just then, the stranger raised an eyebrow and offered a knowing smile, as if he sensed the shift in her resolve, pushing her closer to an unknown confrontation. What history did he hold? What truths lay waiting to be uncovered in this perilous descent? The answers were about to reveal themselves, testing not only the strength of her resolve, but the very foundation on which she was seeking to rebuild. The silence that blanketed the cafe thickened, almost palpable, as Jenny's mind raced through a labyrinth of possibilities. With the stranger's mocking smile still etched in her memory, she sensed an unraveling thread that could either bring her closer to victory or plunge her into chaos. It was a fork in the road, a turning point that demanded not just courage, but intricate calculation. "Okay, let's put all cards on the table," she said, her voice steady despite the tempest churning inside her. "If you're here to play games, we can do that, but we are setting the rules." The declaration felt liberating, a surge of agency she had longed for, even in the face of such immediate danger. The stranger leaned back slightly, an eyebrow raised, his earlier confidence momentarily disrupted. "And what rules would those be, Jenny?" His tone was playful, yet there was an undercurrent of seriousness buried beneath his words. The interplay between them shifted, challenging her to maintain control while revealing her vulnerability. "First, full transparency. We all have stakes in this game," she continued, noticing the slight nod from Marco, who had relaxed ever so slightly but remained tense, eyes sharp. "Second, if we're redefining the game, let's acknowledge that fear only gives power to those who thrive on it." "With courage comes recklessness, dear," he countered, his smile chilling her resolve. Jenny didn't waver. This interaction wasn't merely a battle of wits, but a test of her emerging self. Each response sharpened her resolve. She recognized the power of her voice as a tool to shift dynamics. "It's not about holding the reins, but steering the course," she replied.
Let's face it, whatever your intentions, we're trapped in this cycle until we find a way to break free. We have the same enemies lurking in the shadows. The stranger's interest piqued, and for the first time his demeanor shifted from predator to perhaps a kindred spirit caught in the crossfire. "You see the bigger picture, Jenny. That's impressive. But you must understand the lengths to which some will go to keep their control." "Then let's expose them," she insisted, her heartbeat synchronized with her rising adrenaline. "Let's leverage what we know, not just about each other, but about the powers at play. We need to get leverage, and I'm not afraid to risk it." Around them, muffled conversations resumed, the world beyond their intense standoff blurring into insignificance, as if they were the only ones left in the room. Marco shifted slightly, eyeing Jenny with a hint of newfound respect, while Isabella leaned in as if trying to absorb every word spoken. "Risk is the currency of this game," the stranger remarked, his facade of indifference cracking just enough for her to catch a glimpse of hidden stakes. "But be careful where you tread. There are boundaries even you may not be ready to cross." A flicker of doubt crossed Jenny's mind. What did he know that she didn't? But that uncertainty ignited a raw determination within her. This was not merely about survival anymore. It was about reclaiming her narrative,
defining her role in a family legacy she never chose. She took a deep breath, summoning the clarity that came from her own struggles. I am not afraid of the unknown. Her voice became a beacon of defiance amid the brewing storm. If our paths are entwined, and I believe they are, then it's time we explore the possibility of true partnership. No shadows. Marco's eyes brightened, realizing her approach was daring, yet could forge vital alliances. Isabella's hand brushed against Jenny's, a supportive gesture that anchored her even in the uncertainty. The stranger's gaze narrowed, assessing her profound conviction with an analytical edge. You once asked about changing the script. What if I told you the potential for transformation lies not in confrontation, but in understanding? The thrill of vulnerability rushed through Jenny, rattling her, yet she held her ground. Then let's understand each other, strip away the masks. Just as she pronounced these words, the stranger's expression darkened, a flicker of something inscrutable flashing across his face. Every revelation comes with a price, he warned, his voice dropping to a low, menacing growl. The stakes heightened yet again. There lay a path forward, but it was enshrouded with uncertainties Jenny hadn't anticipated. What daunting truths awaited her? What might she risk in her quest for clarity? The moment perched precariously on the edge of perilous possibilities, propelling Jenny forward into the intricate weave of destinies entwined.
As her resolve solidified, a fresh wave of determination fueled her next move. In that charged atmosphere, she voiced what lingered unspoken. Then let's uncover the truth. The time has come to face what we've been dodging, together. The air quivered, thick with anticipation. But the stranger's next words would change everything, pulling back the curtain on long-buried secrets, pressing Jenny into uncharted territory. Would she embrace the revelation, or would the price be steeper than she ever imagined? The tension hung like fog in the air, warping the cafe's familiar ambiance into something foreign and electric. Jenny's heart thundered in her chest, each beat resonating with the weight of the decision she had just laid bare. She was at a precipice, staring down the chasm of uncertainty, while grappling with the gravity of her words. The stranger's eyes glinted, almost appraisingly, as if gauging her sincerity against the backdrop of his own turbulent motives. Very well, my dear. The truth is always in the eye of the beholder, but knowing it is a different game entirely. His tone sent a shiver down her spine, but Jenny stood her ground, each part of her refusing to back down now that she had voiced her ambition. Let's start then, she replied, her voice resonating with newfound assertiveness. Despite her nerves, she sensed the effectiveness of her defiance, laying a foundation for something greater, a collaborative exploration of truth against the forces that lurked, ever-present and menacing. A meticulous silence enveloped the table as the stranger leaned in, vulnerable yet calculating. Names. I need names. You know what lives in the shadows, and I have but traces of envy to follow. Jenny paused, each name floating into her consciousness like a specter. There were whispers, tales of betrayal and corruption that skulked within the confines of her memories. They were stories etched from the fabric of family lore, passed from one generation to the next. I know of a man, Victor Cole, she finally said, her voice firm. He consolidates power, and the silence surrounding him is more profound than you might think. The stranger's lips curled into a smirk, the amusement twisted with intrigue. Very astute, Jenny. But to wade deeper into these tides of darkness, you must confront your own shadows first. His implication rang heavily in the air. He understood that the journey to uncover another's truth might also expose the strands of her own tangled past. Marco shifted again, a reflection of Jenny's own agitation. What do you mean by that? We are sharing. Why can't we just move forward? His frustration was palpable. He craved action over philosophical musings. But Jenny grasped the hidden meaning in the stranger's words. The prospect of confronting her own darkness was daunting, yet the very thought ignited an emboldened flame within her. This wasn't just about Victor, or the shadows of the Mafia. The unmasking of deeper truths necessitated her own reckoning. She had spent too long suppressing the narratives that dictated her life. It was time to carve out her identity amidst betrayal. Understanding is a two-way street, Jenny asserted suddenly, her voice steadying. Then let's explore those layers together, she countered, aware that every step forward would unearth uncomfortable realities. Rather than fear the vulnerability, Jenny leaned into it, driven by the nascent clarity that seeped into her consciousness. Very well, there is merit in your insistence on partnership.
the stranger acknowledged. His countenance shifted as he leaned back, calculating. But remember, trust is a heavy coin to spend. Each revelation will demand its due. As they settled into this newfound understanding, the air shifted, charged with an electric anticipation. The barista poured steaming lattes, the clinking of cups echoing their resolve to navigate deeper waters. Jenny felt the tension peel away to reveal a core luminous with possibility. But the reality of what lay ahead lingered in her mind, coiling like smoke. Would uncovering her own truth help her conquer the looming threat of Victor, or would it ultimately bind her to the shadows she sought to escape? Before she could ponder further, the stranger leaned forward again, his voice airily above a whisper. To find Victor, you must first find your voice. How well can you wield the words of others? The question hung heavily between them, a clarion call to find strength in vulnerability. It was a challenge that triggered a cascade of reflections. Was she ready to face the personal demons that had kept her from truly speaking up for herself? As she dove into this self-reflection, a flicker of uncertainty danced in her gut. What if, in confronting Victor, she unearthed revelations that would reshape her identity forever? With her heart racing, Jenny prepared to embark on this transformative journey, a quest to not only unmask the shadows of Victor's empire, but also to reclaim her narrative, discovering where her own hidden voice lay in the process. In the quiet intensity of the cafe, surrounded by the swirling chaos of the world outside, she understood that her next move would define her not just as a pawn in the game, but as a formidable player poised to challenge the very roots of her legacy. The air crackled with unresolved tension as Jenny considered the weight of her next steps. How far was she willing to go in her search for truth? The boundaries of her resolve would soon be put to the test.
Would she emerge as the architect of change, or would the cost prove too steep? The sun hung high in the sky, illuminating the diner where Jenny had spent countless hours serving coffee, her transformation now tangible in every gesture and sentence exchanged. The air was heavy with anticipation as she prepared to face Victor, the man whose shadow loomed menacingly over her family. But today, Jenny felt different, stronger. Each decision she made was now steeped in purpose and resolve. As she waited for Isabella and Marco to arrive, Jenny reflected on the journey that had brought her here. Gone were the days when she felt a prisoner of her circumstances. Each smile, each sign, had fortified her spirit. Learning sign language had opened not just communication, but the very essence of friendship, creating bonds that transcended fear and prejudice. Their meeting point was tense, but Jenny had a newfound confidence that steadied her fingertips. Isabella entered first, followed closely by Marco. Their eyes met, and the unspoken solidarity resonated between them. They were allies, forged in shared trials, ready to confront the monster hiding in the shadows. "Jenny, are you ready?" Isabella signed, the urgency in her hands matching the pounding beat of Jenny's heart. "I am," Jenny replied, her fingers moving assertively. "This is the moment we take a stand, not just for ourselves, but for our families." When they reached the alley, it felt as though the air had thickened, bracing for the confrontation ahead. As Victor emerged from the shadows, dapper and imposing, Jenny took a step forward, her voice steady. "We have unfinished business." Victor's smirk was a concoction of arrogance mixed with annoyance. "Come to play house? You're out of your depth, girl." But instead of retreating, Jenny leaned into the moment, recalling the strength she had cultivated in every hour spent with Isabella and the weight of her father's legacy. "Perhaps," she replied, "but it's time for this cycle to end. Fear fueled by silence can't thrive when faced with truth. We want to rewrite the narrative." Her words hung in the air, powerful and unwavering, as Marco and Isabella stood by her side, embodying the trust she had grown to cherish. "You may have power, Victor, but control built on intimidation only breeds rebellion. Look around. It's changing." Victor's eyes narrowed, surprised by the fervor threading through Jenny's declaration. Jenny felt the shift, a faint crack in the wall of power that had long overshadowed their lives. "Bold words," he retorted, his voice dripping with skepticism. "But know this, defiance can come at a cost." "I'm not afraid of costs anymore." Jenny stared into his eyes, the determination of her past struggles echoing in the conviction of her present. Surrounded by the depths of uncertainty, she clung to the belief that vulnerability could transform her narrative.
I can't be intimidated any longer. This is my moment.
As the confrontation unfolded, every truth unveiled felt like a token in a game that had long depleted her father's dignity. Ginny's resolve hardened with each of Victor's dismissive remarks. She realized that weakness had never defined her. Each exchange with Isabella and Marco was a piece of the foundation upon which she built her courage. "Are you truly willing to gamble everything?" he sneered, unfazed. "This isn't a gamble anymore. It's a necessity," Ginny countered, drawing strength from Isabella's fierce spirit beside her. "You want to dictate outcomes based on fear? We choose understanding and respect. We can change the rules if you dare challenge them." Victor shifted uneasily at the newfound assertiveness. For the first time, he appeared rattled. And it was in that arcing moment of vulnerability that Ginny felt the tide beginning to turn. She could sense the power dynamic shifting, as fear was subbed out for respect. The standoff sparked conversations, revealing truths lodged deep within the community, a network of those affected by the same tyrant. Their exchanged stories resonated like an anthem of rebellion, and the tide bolstered Ginny's vision of what could be. With her heart racing, she seized the moment. "You've created a prison, Victor. But we want doors to open, opportunities to flourish, where each voice has a place, and they can elevate one another instead of tearing each other down." The silence that enveloped them felt monumental, each heartbeat a reminder of the stakes laid bare. Finally, Victor's facade cracked, just slightly, his uncertainty evident. "What do you propose?" he demanded, voice strained, defensive energy noting an opening. Ginny could hardly believe her ears, but now was not the time for hesitation. A truce, an agreement where your power doesn't reign through fear, but through choice, shifting power dynamics. Stakeholders can thrive when there's equality. People aren't pawns, but allies. In that exchange, a sense of urgency began to build. The gravity of each word felt like a step closer to liberation. Would he be willing to play along? "We'll always be here, reminding you that your power reigns no longer through intimidation, but through collaboration," Isabella signed, her fingers dancing affirmatively, a testament to everything they had built together. As Victor pondered their proposal, Ginny felt a mix of exhilaration and dread. She had stepped into her own power. Even if the confrontation unraveled, she would emerge transformed by the very act of standing firm for what they believed in. The reality settled heavily. The past would not be easily abated, and while her father's choices still weighed heavily on her shoulders, she was no longer defined by them. "Fine," Victor replied, exhaling sharply. "Let's talk terms." With those words, Ginny felt the tide change, unequivocally aware of her metamorphosis.
Acknowledgments of uncomfortable truths had begun their journey toward connection, lending to liberation rather than chaos. They had dared to confront the shadows that had haunted their pasts together. The weight of Ginny's burdens felt lighter. Each step forward now bore the satisfaction of reclaiming agency, a concrete triumph hard-fought and earned. As they moved into uncharted territory together, the dawning realization set a glow upon her heart. She had not only found her voice, but forged new pathways toward a future designed with choice, mutual respect, and strength. Stepping out of the shadows, Ginny understood that they were not just facing Victor, but transforming into a family of allies who now had the power to rewrite their narrative, create their future, and breathe life into connection, a bond that nourished rather than oppressed. And as they exited the alley, together they knew this was the beginning of a new chapter, one where hearts collaborated and voices rose, a profound manifestation of humanity flourishing in the face of adversity. Now, this isn't just a tale of triumph. It's a reminder of the significance of fostering your inner strength amid turmoil. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment below your reactions and theories about the ending, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion.
You need to support the channel. This is the moment to show your commitment to inspiring personal overcoming stories. Don't wait even one more second to share.